Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. So another Carpuride video regarding the bike info screens, specifically for the Carpuride W502BS and the 702BS, which is the BMW specific versions. I am also going to talk more generally towards the end about the boot logo, which is applicable for the entire 502 and 702 range, but I'm going to start with the bike info screen for the BMW specific version. So I obviously did a video not that long ago regarding editing these images. I did give some of the info on the video regarding how the images need to be formatted, etc, etc, and I also offered to start putting together a list of pre-configured images. Now I have been swamped with emails asking for a variety of different color schemes and bikes, and I am struggling to get through all of them. So if you are one of the people that has emailed me, apologies. The link for the link for Google Drive that I did put into the original video, you may have seen from the pinned comments. Unfortunately, somebody thought it was okay to download all of my images and upload them and make their own video. Now I'm not going to dwell on that too long. I don't own the rights for the original images. I'd have let them have them for free and use them and just credit me for it. Anyway, don't want to get into it. It's not important. But one thing I have noticed is I am getting a lot of questions about the process to take the image from just a pure image, specifically for the bike info screen, through to it being correct to put on the unit itself. Now I know there are obviously varying degrees of computer literacy, and some people are a little bit overwhelmed by anything IT related. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to break it down in a bit more sort of detail in this video. All you're going to need for this is an SD card for the unit, which I will assume you already have. Carpuride recommend no bigger than 32 gig. I know some people have had success with larger cards, but the official instructions are no bigger than 32 gig because the card needs to be formatted as FAT32. So I'm going to assume that you already have that. Aside from that, the only other things you need is well, a computer for one thing, and a web browser. Now this will work on a Windows computer or a Mac. I will sort of caveat that by saying Carpuride do not recommend doing this or even updating the firmware of their units using a Mac. So the reason being is when you put an SD card into a Mac and start putting files on it, Mac OS will start to add some hidden files, and there have been issues in the past. Now I have done this with success. I've even done it while on a trip to Greece last year. I needed to update the firmware on my old unit, and I actually did it on my phone with a little SD card reader and the built-in Files app on my phone. However, that's their recommendations, so I'm going to stick with that for now. So yes, you need the SD card, a computer and a web browser. So I'm going to break this down into different sections. So for the bike image itself, you're going to need the actual image itself. Now on the unit because of the placement of the info, like the tire pressure, readings, the image of the bike needs to be looking at the left hand side, so with the front of the bike facing left. So that's what we're going to do now. So I'm going to go into a web browser here, and I'm going to go to Google Images. So let's find one for my bike. BMW R1300 GS triple black. That's all I'm going to put into the search, and as you can see, thousands of images. So this one here looks fairly good. Let's open that up, and if we hover over it, you will see there in the bottom right hand corner that the image is 800 by 526, which is absolutely fine for what we need. The higher resolution, the better. The image, when it goes onto the SD card, needs to be 437 by 280. So this is more than adequate. So I'm going to right click on that, save image as, and I'm just going to leave it as its default file name for now. So we've got that saved. That's this part done. Now we need to edit it. So we need to do two things. We need to make sure that it has a transparent background, and that it is the right size, which, as I say, is 437 by 280. So Adobe Express is a free website. There is an app as well. There is obviously a paid version, but everything I'm gonna show you in this, as it stands right now, is totally free. So you will need to sign up for an Adobe account, but that takes 2 minutes. So what we're gonna do is we're going to create a new image. So we're going to go over here to the big blue plus button, and I'm going to click on custom size, and we're going to make it 437 by 280 pixels. Create new file. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the background to be transparent, which is basically no fill, so you'll get this sort of checkerboard effect. Okay, so now we need to bring in the file that we downloaded off of Google Images. So I'm going to go over here to upload, and I'm going to pick the file, and it's already it's already brought it in and slapped it onto the image. Now what you will see is this image has a white gradient sort of background, which if we leave it as it is, when it goes onto the unit, it will actually overlap some of the information on the bike screen. So what we're going to do with this still highlighted, we're going to use this little picture of a dog, remove the background. We're going to click, and usually boom, it's done. So as you can see, we now have a transparent image on top of the actual canvas. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drag it out and resize it so that it mostly fills the screen, the actual image. You want a little bit of space both sides. You can move it around and just sort of get it central, but I think that looks good. So yeah, that's fine. So now we go to the download option, and we need to leave it as transparent PNG. Go to download, and we now have the image here in our downloads folder. So what I'm going to do at this stage is I'm going to turn an option on in Windows, which I have had a few instances of people saying that the images haven't worked, and what's happened is they've had to rename the file, and what they've done, because the instructions, you know, say to rename it to motoicon.png, what they've gone and done is they've said motoicon.png, and they've then moved that onto the SD card. Problem is, if I go to view and go show file name extensions, it was already .png, so this file will not work. So I'm going to rename that and take the extra one off. So there we go. We have the image all ready to put onto the SD card for the bike info screen. So now we're going to make sure that our SD card is, you know, ready. So I've already inserted an 8 gig SD card, and we have it here, and we can go right click and go to properties, and we can see that it is formatted to FAT32. If you need to format it, I would advise the card be empty when you actually do this. So you can right click and go to format, and as long as it says FAT32 there, you're fine. So now we're simply going to bring the image, and we're going to right click, go to copy, bring it over to the SD card, right click and paste. So I'm going to I'm going to eject the card, go to the shed, and then I'm going to show you updating the image, because there seems to have been a few sort of quirks with that as well. And then we're going to come back and I'm going to talk about the boot, you know, image. Okay, so now we have the you know, bike info screen, you know, file on the SD card. What we're going to do, you need to remove the little side, the little side piece, which I've already done, and I've already loosely slotted in the SD card. I haven't actually pushed it all of the way in, but because I just want to show you what will happen when you do. So if you boot the unit up with the SD card already in, you shouldn't get this error message. But what will happen is when you put the SD card in, you will get this. Because it thinks that it's a video file that you can play, you will get this screen. So just sort of, you know, tap and go back to the home screen on, you know, on that. That's fine. So what you need to do is we need to go into this eye, and we're going to replace this. Now, some people have said that they have tried the instructions, which are to basically tap on it 6 times, and they've said that it hasn't changed the image. Now that could be either the image file that they've used, either one from me, the file name hasn't been right, they haven't tapped, you know, fast enough, etc. Now I know sometimes the responsiveness to the touch can mean that not all of your presses actually get, you know, recognized, especially if you're doing it, you know, quickly. So even though it should only need six taps, what I would recommend is just literally tapping it quite firmly, repeatedly, until the image, you know, alters. You won't do any harm if you do it 12 times, or it'll change back. So anyway, what we're going to do, I'm going to go into there, and I'm going to go, there we go. I didn't even count. So now we have our you know, image, and it's there, and it lines up absolutely perfectly. Now if we did want to change that back, we'd simply go, and it's back to how it was, and as long as the SD card's in there, it is like that. So what we can do, we can take the SD card out and the image is still there. So I'm just going to turn it off and turn it on again, just to illustrate that you don't need the SD card in there all of the time. As you can see, it's now out and it's still there. So let's do the boot image, which, as you've already seen, I've already done because I've filmed these two bits the wrong way round. Okay, so now we're going to talk about a more generic thing that you can do, which is to edit the boot up screen of your Carpuride 502 or 702. So this will work for the original this will work for the original W502 and 702, the Pro and the new BS model. Okay, fine, let's choose a different one. Let's choose a different R12 let's choose a different R1300 GS image. I'll tell you what, let's try that one. Okay, that is a JPEG one, so that should be fine. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we're going to head back to Adobe Express. Now this is where it's going to change ever so slightly depending on whether you have the 502 or the 702. So I have the 702, so I'm going to talk from that point of view. But if you have the 502, your image needs to be 800 by 480. But in this case, it's going to be for the 702, which is going to be 1024 by 600. So we're going to create another new image of a custom size. We're going to make sure it's 1024 by 600 or 800 by 480 if it's for the 502. Create new file. We don't need to make the background transparent because we're going to use that full image. Upload, and there is the image, and as you can see, it's there. Now it looks like it's not the correct aspect ratio for this, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the corners out until it fills the screen. Now I could leave it like this, but we obviously have a white bar at the top and the bottom, so I'm going to drag it beyond so it hits there, and then drag it beyond so it hits there. Boom, now we have a full screen. We have the image that actually takes up the full size of our image. Now what I could do at this point, I could add some text. I'm just going to add a text box and put BMW R1300 GS. Change the color to white. Not going to do anything special. This is merely to illustrate the point, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to have it so that it's central. There we go, we get the little pink line. There we go, and then I'm going to change the opacity so it sort of blends in a little bit there. Right, so let's say I was more than happy with that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to download that. I'm going to leave it as a PNG again, and I'm going to download that. Okay, we can ignore that little prompt. So now we can't just put this image straight onto the SD card. We have this, because this updates the boot screen. This file has to be converted to a bin file. So There is a website I've found. It is not mine. I don't own it. I have no involvement with the incredibly clever guy who created this. And if you like their site, please give them a shout out, and maybe consider chucking them a small gift. But yeah, this is not my site. I just think it's really handy, and I've been using it ever since I got my first Carpuride unit. So this is the website that you will see when you browse to it. I'll put this link in the description. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you need to choose the model. Obviously, if you have the 502 or the 502 Pro, you need to choose this option. I assume the 502 BS model is also on this option. He looks like he has updated the one for the 702, but as mine is the 702, I'm going to choose that, and we have this black box. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go choose file, find the file that we just downloaded from Adobe Express, which looks like it is this one. And as we can see, it fits absolutely fine. Now, what will happen if you choose a file that doesn't have the correct size? Let me just try that. And as you can see, it's completely out of whack, and it actually tells you that it needs to be that size. So because we already did that with this one, it works absolutely fine. And obviously this is your sort of preview. So then you literally click download boot logo, and you get a file called isppart.bin. So what you need to do with this is you must leave the file completely as it is, and you need to copy the card, file over to the SD card, and then obviously eject the SD card. And now we will go back to the bike, and I will show you that also. Okay, so we're in the shed, and we're going to now update the boot image. So let's fire the unit up, and as you can see, it has the original boot image. So what I'm going to do to make life easier, and I find this works easier, is if you slide the card in, but don't actually press it all of the way in. We're going to boot the unit up. You do sometimes have to be sort of quick when the message pops up, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the SD card in, and as you can see, update isppart.bin, hit the tick, and hopefully when it reboots, boom, we have our new boot image. Now what I can do now is let me turn the unit off. I'm going to take the SD card out, if I can stop being so completely and utterly cack-handed, and then I'm going to fire it up again to show you that even once the SD card out, it is there. We go. Now what I will say is, if you it would be a good idea to save the file, the ISP part file, because if you ever need to do a firmware update on these, it will revert the boot screen back to the original. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Thanks very much for watching. I know I've waffled on, but this sort of thing, it is quite technical and in-depth. It's not hard. There's not many steps, but I just wanted to make sure that, you know, there wasn't this inference that, oh, you have to ask, you can't do it yourself, it's really difficult, and, you know, blah blah blah. It's not. And hopefully this video has, you know, shown that. Any problems, there's a link down in the description to my link, you know, tree. My email is on there. It's thestammeringbiker@gmail.com. If you have any questions, any issues, I will say, and I probably should have said this at the start, obviously I can't take responsibility for any issues you might have. Your mileage might vary, especially with this info screen. Some of the original units of this, instead of this sort of, you know, kind of cartoon bike, they had a picture of a BMW K1600 in black. Some people have had issues updating the bike info screen and have needed to get a firmware update from Carpuride, but with everything, you know, like this, there are inherently risks. But if you follow the steps that I have, hopefully everything should be fine. If you do like this, please give it a thumbs up, and I will make more stuff like this. So a subscribe to the channel would be much appreciated. Right, I'm going to go, and I'll speak to you in the next video.